Happy endings. Lulu loved happy endings, whether it was a book, a movie, a TV show, or even on Facebook. Not that she had experienced too many happy endings in her own brief life. Her own life was a series of unfortunate events and even catastrophes. Orphaned at a young age, she was brought up as a ward of the state, living in a series of orphanages, each one bleaker and nastier than the one before it. When she became of age at 18 years old, she was pushed out into the world as if she were a piece of trash that nobody wanted. And so it often seemed to her that she was indeed a piece of trash and did not deserve the love and emotional nourishment that she saw others receiving just for being alive. Yet she knew deep in her lonely heart club band of one that she did not deserve anything just for being alive. And so she tried her best to deserve what she wanted and needed by being as cheerful and helpful and useful as she could be to everyone and anyone she came into contact with. Not friend or foe. Not that she had many of the first. She was just so damnably cheerful and helpful in every single way that she creeped people out, and they turned away from her, even as she hoped they would turn toward her. Lulu knew from experience that there was something deeply wrong with her, but what it was she could not understand nor express. She knew that her perpetual sunshine personality got on people's nerves and that it made them react with a deluge of dark clouds or worse, a full force gale of bad weather in her direction. She had various jobs, all of them in the quote service industry, various fast food joints where the service was dubious and the clientele often rude and obnoxious. She tried to be sparkly and welcoming to them all, but as time went on, she began to wilt in the face of the ugliness of the patrons, the atmosphere of too bright lights and too cheap ingredients, the piles of pink sludge that passed for food, the back-breaking long hours of work, and the greasy smell of her clothing and of herself that she carried home with her each night. Excuse me. One blessed Sunday, she sat at her tiny kitchen table in her tiny kitchen and idly looked through the want ads in hopes of finding something that was not so heart and soul breaking. She sat and sipped her quote instant coffee and slowly read the many ads in the quote service industry until one suddenly leaped out at her. Really, it was as if the small ad had actually leapt off the page at her, demanding her attention. Wanted, it said, server at small tea house, hours flexible, apply in person. And the name of the tea house was very strange. The tea house at the edge of the world, it said. Gosh, she thought to herself, I hope it isn't all the way on the other side of town. Lulu did not drive and so spent many long hours on buses trying to get from one part of town to another. But when she looked at the address, it was quite near where she lived. Well, she thought, I don't really know much about tea other than it comes in little bags. But the way her heart felt when the little ad leaped out at her made her think it was at least worth checking out. So check it out she did. That very afternoon, she wasn't sure if it would be open on Sunday, but nothing ventured, nothing gained, she reminded herself, though in her case it was usually everything ventured, nothing gained. So she went to the address listed in the ad, but did not find any shop called the Tea House at the Edge of the World. She crossed the street and went down the block on the other side, but nothing there as well. Finally, before giving up completely, she went to the exact address listed in the ad and found a door with a small, even tiny sign that read, Welcome to the Tea House at the Edge of the World. She hesitated for a moment, then knocked as loud as she could. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then the door slowly opened. It didn't creak like the doors in the scary movies she had watched at the orphanage. The orphans there seemed to love scary movies, which Lulu did not love or even like. But it was a little scary how slowly it opened. Then a thin, white, even ghostly hand crept slowly out, followed by the smiling face of a very old woman. The lines in her face were more like gullies or ditches, no doubt worn into her face by much sadness and even suffering. But her smile was very bright and looked much younger than the rest of her face. It was almost like a young person smiling behind the face of an old person. Hello, said Lulu. Lulu, I've come about the ad. Welcome, said the woman. Please come in. Then she added, You are most welcome here. And she said it in such a warm and friendly way that Lulu did feel very welcome indeed. The door opened wider, and Lulu entered a very large room with many small tables and chairs. It was completely empty of people, and she thought, It probably isn't open on Sundays. The woman gestured to one of the tables, and Lulu sat down, ready to begin describing her extensive resume of service jobs, meaning soul sucking and heartbreaking ones. But the woman suddenly got up and went out of the room and through a door at the back of the room, undoubtedly the kitchen. Lulu got a whiff from the kitchen as the woman went through the door and immediately noticed it did not have the usual greasy, depressing smell of the kitchens of her previous unfortunate jobs. Instead, it smelled like flowers and dried grasses and something sweet and even happy. How could smells be happy? She asked herself. Yet happy it was, and even joyful, if that were possible, as it seemed it was. Lulu sat at the small table looking around the room. There were shelves and shelves of plants and tiny teapots and even what looked like round, flat cakes of tea. She couldn't imagine what kind of tea this could possibly be. Was it some kind of giant tea bag? Suddenly, the young old face of the woman popped up beside her. Lulu actually jumped, it was so sudden. Oh, I'm so sorry, dear, said the woman. I did not mean to startle you. Then she smiled her young woman in the old woman's smile, and Lulu felt herself relaxing, as if all the trouble she constantly carried around with her began to lighten a bit. My name is Mei Lin, said the woman. That sounds like a Chinese name, thought Lulu. Oh, said Lulu, a bit flustered. My name is Lulu. Oh, Lulu, said Mei Lin slowly. That almost sounds like a Chinese name. Lulu wondered for a moment if the woman was reading her mind, repeating just what she had been thinking a moment earlier, but then she remembered that she did not believe in such things. Maylin sat back in her chair and looked at Lulu for what seemed an endlessly long time. Then she nodded at her several times, and for some reason, Lulu felt as she Lulu felt as she had just been judged and had passed the test. The tea that we serve here is very special tea, began Maylin. Some people call it magical tea or healing tea, and even heavenly tea, but really it is all just very high quality tea. She looked over at Lulu and nodded again. We serve only Chinese tea, she said. I hope that will not be a problem. Lulu, who had been sitting there feeling a feeling of wanting very much to work at this wonderfully happy smelling tea house, answered, Oh, no, I don't really know anything about Chinese tea, but would be happy to learn. That is, if you're willing to teach me. She suddenly found she was holding her breath. Of course, said Malin enthusiastically. I can see that you are a fast learner, which was odd since Lulu had always felt and experienced herself as a very slow learner. When can you start? Asked Malin, giving Lulu another one of her young old smiles. Any time, Lulu felt herself saying. Great, said Malin. How about right away? Oh, said Lulu, you mean like tomorrow? Oh, no, said Malin. I mean like right now. Okay, said Lulu, who instead of feeling nervous about the whole thing, was finding herself feeling quite excited about the whole thing, which was very unlike her. So Lulu spent that first day careening between joy and frustration and even fear. But overall, it seemed that joy was winning out. Of course, she felt completely out of her realm when the owner of the mysterious tea house started teaching her about tea. She had never heard of tea being presented in that way. To her, tea was something that came in little bags, which you added milk and sugar to. But here at the tea house at the edge of the world, tea was something altogether different and more magical, if such a word could be associated with something as mundane as tea. Actually, as she would learn, tea was anything other than the mundane, at least not in the way it was presented in the tea house at the edge of the world. Here, tea was considered a medicine, a way to commune with the world of nature, which, of course, is where tea itself came from. Funny, to Lulu, she always thought of it as it just came fully formed in the boxes of tea at the grocery store. Not only that, but here tea was seen as a spiritual practice. Lulu had been raised as a Christian, but she had lost interest in it as she had grown up. She listened as Mei Lin explained that tea itself was a gift from the earth to the world of humans from deep in her heart. And it was when humans drank and shared that gift with others that the earth communicated and even blessed them. This was, of course, quite foreign to Lulu's way of looking at the world. She had never heard of such things as the earth being alive and communicating with people. She thought about it all the way home after that first day at the tea house at the edge of the world. She thought about it when she fixed herself a simple supper, and she thought about it the rest of the evening. Instead of sitting in front of the TV as she usually did each evening, she made herself a cup of tea and thought about it some more. Of course, the tea was cheap tea bag tea, but somehow she felt a feeling about it that was much different than before. She thought about it as she brushed her teeth and got ready for bed, and she thought a lot more about it as she lay in the dark of the night before she dropped off into a deep sleep. But just before dawn, she had a dream, a tea dream. In the dream, she was walking through a deep forest filled with huge old trees. The trees were, of course, tea trees. Mei Lin had told her that the most popular tea at the tea house at the edge of the world was pu'er, which grew on trees, not bushes. The trees in her dream grew together in clusters. Some of them even had their limbs, their arms entwined. The limbs were also heavy with various kinds of mosses and looked very, very old. Mei Lin had told Lulu that some of them had roots going hundreds of feet into the earth, the living, breathing earth. Lulu walked through this cathedral of trees, which is how she saw and felt it, and let her hands trail through the low hanging limbs, her arms reaching out for theirs. She looked around and about and found that she felt safe here in the ancient dense forest, safer than she had ever felt before. Not only that, but she felt accepted in a way that she had never felt around anyone in her short, sad life. It was as if the limbs of the trees were reaching out to her as she reached out to them, as if they were in a sort of embrace here in the deep, deep forests of the living beings of tea. When she woke up, she spent a little more time enjoying the dream. She couldn't wait to tell Mei Lin about it. Mei Lin, her new friend and teacher and boss. And sure enough, when she did tell Mei Lin, she smiled a deep and lovely smile. Yes, she said, tea is calling to you. She recognizes you. She knows you. Lulu spent the rest of that day and for many days after floating a little above the earth, the living, breathing earth. As she poured pour for all the wonderful customers at the tea house at the edge of the world, she learned about all kinds of teas, green tea, black tea, red tea, and of course, pu'er tea, the most magical one of them all. And she found that she did not even have to try very hard to be recognized and accepted and welcomed by all the wonderful tea lovers that showed up each day. As the days went on, she felt more and more at home there in that cozy tea house. She felt a sense of belonging that she had never felt before. At the end of the day, she felt happy, tired but happy, not drained and smelly like from her other jobs. And when she got home, instead of plopping herself in front of the TV, she brewed herself a small pot of very expensive tea. Of course, she got a discount from the tea house and only bought very small batches of the most aged and wonderful tea in the world, her world at least. She sat on her couch and looked out the window and watched as summer sprang into spring, and spring flowed into fall, and fall fell into winter, and then winter flew into summer again. And since she was still at the beginning of her journey, it was not the happy ending she had always dreamed of, but it was sure a happy beginning. So here we are, the changing of the seasons, the changing of the time, the journey. I have a few notes that I jotted down saying we are all on a journey around the sun, around our own lives. This journey is sometimes very challenging and sometimes very healing, sometimes full of pain and sorrow, also full of magic and miracles, both small and big. This term Tao, this Taoism that I teach, this term Tao, which means a road or path. At the same time, it means walking on a road or path. And it also means all who walk on that path. So we're moving from a very young time of year. Well, we're moving from not a very young time of year because summer is the very young time of year, but we have gone through fall, which is when yang is starting to move into yin, but not quite, still pretty young. And now we're moving into the very yin time of year, full winter, starting today and carrying on until the spring, where the yang starts to come back until the full flourishing of yang in the summer. So the ancient Taoists, these very wise people from thousands of years ago really were paying a lot of attention to the world around them. Taoists believed that the best teacher, better than any video or Zoom call or any of this kind of thing, or any book or any video, is nature. Nature with a giant N. It's a giant N. I mean, with a big N, nature. And if we open ourselves to learning from nature, of course, in ancient China, it was a very agrarian society. There weren't a lot of big cities. There were only a few. Even more ancient times, there were no cities. So people were living in nature, paying attention to the stars and the patterns of the stars, paying attention to when the seasons were growing in and out of each other, paying attention to the animals, how they were living, how when animals were sick or injured, what plants did they go and eat, how animals turn themselves in a circle when they lay down to sleep, or some animals like certain birds that stood on one leg and had one leg up under them to close off the opening. And so they learned a lot, and then they paid attention to what worked as far as communicating and communing with other people as well as animals. In the ancient Taoist text, the Zhuangzi, he talks about, and this is true of a lot of cultures, that there was a time when people and animals understood each other and could communicate with each other and speak to each other in a language they both understood. Because at that time, humans weren't what he calls making discriminations between you are a lowly animal and I am a top of the heap human. There was much more give and take going back and forth. And it wasn't until much later on that people started discriminating. At that time, people would talk to trees, right? And trees would speak to them. Trees have their own language, right? Plants have a language we all know. And like in the story, when Lulu's never had this concept of the living, breathing earth, which of course most people in modern society don't have. They think of it as some sort of just dead rock in space with the plants that people plant and the horrible factories that are polluting the earth. But the earth is alive. We know the earth speaks to us, communicates to us. We know we can communicate with the earth, the living, breathing earth. We know. And later, as so-called evolution started moving forward, humans did start making distinctions and feeling like trees and plants are they're alive, but they're not really, they have no kind of intelligence like humans do. And animals have a certain low level intelligence, but nothing like humans. And he said when that happened, Tao was lost, or connection to Tao was lost. Connection to Tao. Tao also means source, source with a capital S. And so now we are here, you folks, me folk, we know better. We know that we can communicate with trees and plants and animals. We know if we do this sort of qigong practice where you put your back up against a tree and you interlace your fingers and place them over your lower dantian and just stand or if you're sitting down with your back against the tree and just sit and breathe. Breathe with the tree and do it for a long enough time that you actually feel the tree breathing along with you, which sounds like a crazy idea to modern people, but it's something people have been doing for many thousands of years. It's one of the very simple Qigong practices you can do with trees. And of course, now we know also that trees communicate with each other through their root system, through this huge complex fungi that's growing just under the ground that sometimes covers hundreds of miles. So what I'm getting at here is when things start shifting astrologically, astronomically, seasonally, yin-yangly, we humans feel it in our own being, especially if you're a person who meditates, does yoga, qigong, or someone who just loves being in nature and somebody who's learned how to, what the Chinese call manzo, meaning slowing yourself down, slowing your thought processes down, slowing your emotional reactions to other people in the world down, going slowly enough when we're doing our Qigong or Tai Chi Chuan or meditation, we're breathing very deeply, very slowly. And by doing that kind of practice, we start moving in a kind of movement that the planet itself is moving. We know the planet is turning. We know that trees and plants are growing. We sometimes feel like, well, I'm not growing at all. I grew up to be an adult and now I'm not growing any further. But of course, if you do these kinds of practices, you do grow, right? So yang, considered bright, hot, outward energy, spring, summer, sometimes called apparent energy, easy to see, easy to feel. Yin, dark, cool, or cold, inward energy, more subtle energy. And sometimes people say, well, yang, male and female, yin, but it really has nothing to do with gender. It's just, actually, I don't even like to use those terms male and female because I think it confuses people. So yin and yang, often translated as yin and yang, better translated as yin yang because it's two sides of the same thing. Originally yang was the sunny side of the hill, yin was the shady side of the hill. Young, we have these young times in our life that we're very creative, more outward bound. We're getting a lot accomplished. We're really feeling like we're going on a big wave. Other times we're feeling like I just need to take some time off. I need to look within. I need to gather my chi so that it can grow, so that when I'm in more of a yang time of my life, I have this chi to work with. Sometimes you wish you were in a yang time. You wish you were in a more outward expansive time. But if you work with oracles like the I Ching or you just do deep meditation practices, you learn that no, 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 this is not where I am right now. And it's better not to try to force myself to be in that yang situation. It's time to go within, slow down, and gather your energy. Oops, I just made a mistake there. Here we go. So this idea of noticing, feeling, aligning ourselves with change. The I Ching, the ancient book, 5,000-year-old book, the oldest book on the planet, is called the Book of Changes, or it can also be translated as the Book of Transformation, because everything is in the universe is transforming all the time. We are transforming all the time, right? We are shedding thousands of cells and creating new cells all the time. We are learning new things, or maybe we are understanding better the things we have learned. So that's to me what this time is about, this time of moving from the young, expansive, energized, and moving into yin in a different kind of energized. It's still energized. Excuse me, let me drink some tea here. But it's more like in traditional people's winter was when you sat around the fire and told coyote stories. Um, and yang was when you went out and planted the seeds in the earth. In Taoism, we call spiritual work self-cultivation. We are planting seeds, these seeds of understanding and depth and um, things that we want to grow in our spiritual garden. And then we are tenderly tending those plants until they can grow up, and then we can reap the fruits and the vegetables of our spiritual cultivation. But this is the time where, at least in the North America continent, or the North American part of the world, the northern part of the world, where things are shutting down, the earth is shutting down, places where the snow is covering the earth. Here in Oregon, where I live in Eugene, Oregon, we only get snow a couple times a year. Um, but it's a time to slow down and really honor that part of yourself that maybe at other times you wouldn't honor because you want to be creative and you want to make things happen. You want others to see you as being like getting things done. You want to feel in yourself that you're a being that is very creative and is really open to learning and growing. And instead, we're moving into the other time of our lives of honoring that part of ourself that we often experience even during the young times as more quiet, more grounded in the earth, more moving manzo, moving slowly. So I wanted to do a little meditation here about all this. So we're going to work a little bit with breath and a little bit with some images and some mantra, which you can say out loud or within. So first we're going to do is we're just going to sit on our chair or on our cushion or standing on the earth or lying down, even if you have mobility issues. And we're going to put the tip of our tongue to the roof of our mouth. And all you Qigong people know about this to connect one of the two extra, called the extra or psychic meridians, one that goes up the back and one that goes down the front. And we're breathing in and out of our nose, in this particular practice, we're doing what's called natural breathing, meaning when we inhale, our abdomen expands. When we exhale, our abdomen contracts. And it's a very grounding, soothing kind of breathing. And we just do that for a few minutes and really bring ourselves into a place of groundedness, solidity, presence with a capital P, harmonious with a capital H, peaceful. And our abdomen expands to the front, to the sides, and also to the back, like we're blowing up a balloon. So if you're sitting against the back of the chair, you should feel your back expanding out to the chair. I mean, people don't think they can actually fill their abdomen so they can move their back, but it's very easy to do, actually. And as we're breathing, we imagine we're actually breathing right into our lower dantian, one of the most important centers of our body, the first of the three dantians. And you're breathing very slowly, very deeply, and very gently. When we sit in meditation, it's very important to sit with a feeling of joy. Sometimes we feel like, well, this meditation is very serious business. We have to be very serious about it. And sometimes people even get kind of somber about it. But in Taoist meditation, we say, sit with a feeling of lightness in your heart. Even have a small smile on your face, like all the statues we see and paintings we see of the Buddha. He's sitting with a small smile. It kind of opens up your meditation into a much more joyful feeling. And feel your center, the center of your being, as being very soft and flexible, but also feeling very strong and centered at the very same time. Feeling ourselves as if we were a tree being ourselves with our roots going deep into the earth, our branches and limbs opening to the sky. We drop all our leaves. We're ready for winter to come in now. A lot of our energy is going down into our root system rather than in all the buds and leaves and flowers and fruit that we produce during the yang time of year. I will do a little practice of balancing our yang and yin breaths. As you inhale, have this image of the solidity of the tiger. And as you exhale, experience yourself as the fluidity of a dragon. So breathe in the tiger, breathe out the dragon. Kind of connect with that part of us that is a very strong, earthy, solid dragon being. And also the part of us that's a very fluid, playful, soaring, sweeping through the air and the heavens dragon. If we are grounded, if we are solid in our being, when things shift, whether it's a season or a time of our life or a challenge, a big challenge in our life, if we have our lower dantian filled with good, nourishing qi, we're much less likely to be knocked off our base. And then you can practice breathing in the dragon and exhaling the tiger. Sometimes we feel like a solid, powerful tiger. Sometimes we feel like a soaring, fluid, dancing dragon. We can move back and forth from those two parts of ourselves with grace and ease. We don't always have to be the grounded earth tiger taking care of business. Sometimes we can be the playful, flying through the heavens dragon. Both sides are equally proper, equally to be loved. The next mantra is Shin Ping Chi He, which means heart tranquil, Chi harmonious. So breathe in Shin Ping. You can even say it to yourself with this feeling that your heart, your spirit is tranquil. And as you breathe out Chi He, that your Chi is harmonious and balanced and strong. Or just say it in your mind. Shin Ping Chi He. Heart tranquil, Chi harmonious. And anytime you feel unsafe or depressed or angry or ungrounded or supremely challenged or even daily challenged, you can go back to this mantra. Shin Ping, my heart, my spirit, my mind is tranquil. Chi He, my chi, my vital force, my life energy is not only strong, but in a very harmonious, balanced way. We don't need chi that's flying all over the place, that we're bursting out of us and upsetting other people and getting us ungrounded. We want our chi to be harmonious so that as we're moving from one part of the year to another, we feel we are in sync with it, in harmony with it. And the last mantra is as you breathe in, you feel or say, I feel the light of love within me. As you exhale, I feel the light of love around me. And you may have an image also of that, feeling like you're bathed in light and in love. Breathing in, I feel the light of love within me. Breathe out, I feel the light of love all around me. And then lastly, you say, you feel, you experience, I am one with the love, excuse me, I am one with the light of love in all things. What the Chinese call Wan Wu, the 10,000 beings. All the two-legged people, the four-legged people, the flying people, the swimming people, the standing people, the flowing people, the water people, the earth people, the heavens people, the star people. I am one with the light of love in all things. We just say that 3 times. I am one with the light of love in all things. I am one with the light of love in all things. I am one with the light of love in all beings. And sometimes, like in the story, when we're seeking for a happy ending, what it really turns out to be is a happy beginning. All beginnings have endings, all endings have beginnings. Just like we're breathing in the tiger, breathing out the dragon, breathing in the heart tranquil, the chi harmonious, breathing in beginnings, breathing in endings, breathing in endings, breathing out beginnings. And the more open we can be, the more open our heart, our chi can be, the easier it'll be to receive blessings, information, illumination, inspiration from our spirit guides, from the world around us, from the world within us, what the Bible calls the still small voice within. The less static we have in our minds, the easier it will be to hear those that that inspiration from within. Now, to end, I want us to stand up, do a little qigong to connect with the yin and yang in our own qi system. We're standing with our feet flat on the earth, shoulder width apart, sending roots like tree roots from the bottom of our feet down into the earth at least 3 times the length of your body. So you feel really grounded and centered and rooted. And we're just going to do a very simple little connection to yin and yang energy. So first we're going to do like this kind of movement. And we're going to imagine we're embracing the moon, the yin moon, a nice, big, beautiful golden moon reflecting all the light back to us. And the mantra here is, ah. Then we're going to do a bigger embrace and embrace the sun, much more yang energy. And in this one, word, the mantra is wow. Okay. Ah, yin. Wow, yang. Wow, we get to do this together with each other here in this moment together, this moment in Cyber Tao. So we'll do it 3 times. Embracing the sun, embracing the moon. Like really embracing that big, beautiful moon and bringing that moon energy down through our central channel, all the way down into our lower dantian, all the way down to our whole body, down to the bottom of our feet. And the mantra is, ah. Okay, let me do that again with the mantra. Ah. And then embrace the sun. Wow. Filling ourselves up with that good yang, sunny, joyous energy, embracing the moon once again. Ah. And embracing the sun. Wow. And then one more time with the moon. Ah. And one more time with the sun. Wow. Palms come together over our lower dantian. And we breathe 9 times, breathing, filling our lower dantian with good, healing, fun, delightful chi. And then we massage 9 times in a circle across our lower dantian, 9 times one direction and 9 times the other. And we bring our feet together and we bow to each other, bow to the earth, bow to the sky. I'll leave you with the immortal words of the Beatles. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. So thank you for your attention. Thanks for sharing this lovely moment with me. And I'll see you next time. I am going to do a free short webinar about practices for the winter, probably next month. January or February. So I'll see you then, if not before.
Thank you,
Okay,
Salala.
you're very welcome.
Thank you, Salala. That was great.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
lovely.
Enjoy the solstice, everyone.
Yippee.
Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Yes. Okay, bye for now.